Welcome to another episode of For the Fowlers. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Caton.
And before we get started on here, we just want to remind all you listeners out there, be sure to follow us on Instagram at For the Fowlers. We're getting more and more followers each day, and stay tuned because we were talking about doing a little giveaway as we continue to get more followers. So we'll post details on our Instagram, but make sure you're following us for those details. So, Caton, here we are, a few weeks into the Balance of the State season here in California. How's it going out there so far?
It's been good. We had our first hunt, you and I, was it last week or a week and a half ago? We got into a couple birds. It was a good time. And then I had some family in town last weekend, and I was able to shoo them out of the house early on Saturday. And I packed up my two kids, and we did a little afternoon hunt up north, and we got into some birds. It was actually pretty exciting to see a flight with not a whole lot of weather going on. But we were able to knock a few down, and the boys were excited anytime they get to come home with at least a little bit of a strap. Brag to mom. So it was cool. It's definitely starting to turn on a little bit.
Yeah, what are you hearing out there, kind of the rest of the Sacramento Valley?
From the people I know who actually word of mouth, it seems like it's definitely a mixed bag, and it seems like the hot spots that along the river, things like that, are shooting pretty well. But a lot of the refuges, at least from the people I've talked to who have gone out and hunted the refuges, have been pretty slow. Talked to a buddy today who hunted out at Delavan and didn't have much luck, knocked down a few birds. But yeah, it's been tough. You see people post online big piles from refuges, but I haven't been hearing that necessarily from anyone I know. I know the water's kind of been an issue.
Yeah, it's been pretty hit or miss. I've just been kind of connecting with different guys, but also listening to, other podcasts and whatnot, and kind of getting the local report. And definitely for the guys that are, quote, grinding it out on the refuge, they're having some success. But, I was listening to, I think it was the spot burn from Filthy Spoon. John was connecting with someone down in the grasslands, and sounds like it's like less than a half bird average down there. And what I thought was kind of funny was he said one refuge one morning had 7 shots total, but 4 were before shoot time. So they're getting desperate down there.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty par for the course sometimes. I mean, up in the Sac Valley today, I was out there working on the blind, and it was 83 when I got back in my truck. So it's a little warm, but we got a storm pushing in tonight, I want to say. Not a super cold one, but it's going to bring a good amount of rain for us up north. I think we're looking at over an inch and a half on Tuesday. And anytime I see that, I know that just means it gets a little nastier up in the mountains and up towards Thule and Klamath. So it might kick some birds down and start lowering the temperature a little bit and improving the hunting for us valley hunters and you guys down in the grasslands.
Yeah, I met up with you a little bit towards the end of the work day today, and I know we shot off to Farmers for a late lunch, grabbed a couple beers up there, so it was good seeing some folks over at Farmers. But on my way back home, I actually stopped by the Sac Refuge, just kind of checking at the check station and see what's going on there. And this is about 2:30, 2:45, not one car in the parking lot there. And I go up to the window there, and he's like, there's a couple folks out there, but he said that he had not heard a single shot since 9 a.m. So
Oh, wow.
it is slow. I think overall Sac Refuge, I think I saw a 1.5 bird average over the weekend, and I was looking at the flood map. There's still very limited water up there, and obviously hunter quotas are extremely low too. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a slow start to the season. I think, obviously we were all extremely optimistic, and we still have a ton of season to go, but I think we thought we'd probably get a little better start, out the gate. But
Yeah, it seems like I mentioned earlier, it's if I know a few guys who hunt some natural private stuff and they're getting into some birds, but that kind of seems to be expected because they have water by the opener. They've got some good established habitat on the flyways. I don't have anyone that I know that's rice is flooded. I saw some fields are flooded up by willows, but in my big group, most of us don't see water until about this week.
Yeah,
So we'll see. It'll turn up though. It's early. It's November. I mean, what do you expect?
yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, just driving through the valley today, yeah, more and more fields are starting to flood up. So we'll definitely see if those birds start coming in. But for the listeners out there, we're not looking for you to burn any spots, but please, shoot us a message on Instagram. Let us know kind of how things are going for you this season. We'd love to hear it. So, speaking of refuges, Kate, and I know we were kind of talking about this episode here, and I think it's going to be kind of a fun one, but this episode's going to be all about our pet peeves when it comes to the refuge, those unwritten rules, if you will. So, I know that you saw that I put out the bird call out to our fellow hunters on Facebook and kind of find out what grinds their gears. So I asked, hey, what are your pet peeves when it comes to refuge hunting? And some of these kind of overlap into private land, rice hunting as well. But for the most part, this is all, when it comes to refuges specifically here in Northern California. So, we saw the comments. There were definitely some good ones there. So I figure we just kind of go through some of the comments that we received and, we'll kind of give our 2 cents on it. What do you think?
Absolutely.
So I kind of broke it down into a few different categories here. And, the first one being kind of the Facebook, social media, cyber scouting section, if you will. And, I won't throw out full names here, but we'll kind of go through each one of these and, love to hear what you think on it. And I'll give my comments as well. So you ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right.
I like this first one right off the bat.
Yeah. So the first one comes from Brent K. And his biggest pet peeve is showing off reservation wins on Facebook.
For me, excuse me. For me, that's like, I get it if you have one draw, but to kind of jump on that, it's one of those, you'll see these people who have, I don't know, they need to get a lottery ticket or something. They'll post like, hey, I got number 3 at Sac, number 4 at Howard, number 1 at Lano. I got 3 down in the Grasslands. Where should I go? And that's just like, that makes me feel great because I haven't had a draw since December of 2024.
For sure, man. And I love it because obviously they put all those out there and, they obviously want to brag about it, but then you see them kind of black out or redact certain parts of their resi notice or all this stuff. But yeah, then they reach out, hey, where do I go? Let me rub this in your face. But hey, what advice do you have for me while I decide to go do my little Dry Creek number 3 and burn the rest of my resis?
Exactly.
So, yeah, no, that was definitely a good one. It was interesting on this one because sometimes I'll post, especially on on Instagram, I'll post like the unsuccessful notices that I get, So, but yeah,
That's a long list.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that, but obviously I don't want to hear about good for them, but hey.
Especially you hear like there's some old timers out there have been putting in for years and are used to the old system and stuff like that, and it's just rough for them. So that's one of my pet peeves. I get it's exciting to get a draw, but I don't need to see all 4 of your draws.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on the way like it's never going to be a perfect system, but
I can't come up with a solution where they're not going to make the money that they need. And I get it.
But somehow like I feel like we can put in as many places as possible, but like either A, you only get like that one draw. So when the system randomizes it on Thursday night at midnight before it sends out the success or unsuccess, if you get number 10 at Sacramento, then every other one that you get, like they give you your best option. I don't know. The other one was, God, I'm trying to think, not about the money. Oh, that you should have to almost confirm your reservation, right? And I think that, I don't quote me here, but I think the way California Waterfowl does it is like once you win the draw, you have like a few days to say, yeah, I'll be there before I think it goes to like first come, first serve. So that way those resis aren't getting burned. Because how many times are you and I in a parking lot and we maybe have like a number 25 somewhere and we actually sometimes will actually count to see how many people don't show up. And sometimes it turns into like a 15, right?
So. Yeah. And I will say that kind of is a sneaky benefit of people having multiple. And it actually, I think some of the local guys who don't even put in for the reservations and they're just lottoing and sweating on, they probably benefit from people not showing. Good point. So I do see a positive aspect of it. But I mean, it just from the mindset of there's no perfect system, but for us, when you're driving 2-3 hours, 4 hours, I mean, I wish I lived 20 minutes away from 2 or 3 refuges. Don't get me wrong, but when we're driving 3 hours, it sure would be like that's when the resi's super nice.
Yeah, I think
So I don't know. It'll never work, but I'll keep putting in at $1.34.
yeah, I feel like it keeps going up, but yeah, it definitely adds up for sure. Well, I guess kind of along those same lines, sticking with the Facebook one, we had a comment from Ryan C on Facebook that says, posting on Facebook for hunting advice. And this one I'm kind of back and forth on. I think what Ryan is, I don't want to speculate, but I think what Ryan was thinking was like the guys that get on and say, hey, I have a resi at YOLO. I've never been there before. Does anyone have any advice on it? I don't think that they're asking, hey, what time do they start calling numbers? But I think it's like, hey, do I go blind? Do I go free roam? What do you, that type of stuff. But
And that's
we've talked, man, it can be brutal. You put yourself out there on, and I think we all know what page we're talking about, but you get on some of those Facebook pages, it can be brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am very hesitant to. I don't even know if I've ever really posted on there. I'm always hesitant to do it. There's some success stories, like guys who are clearly new to hunting, and it's probably 2 to 1, 2 positive comments to 1 guy, maybe razzing them up a little bit, where there's some good advice talking about what to bring and things like that. A lot of the advice is the same, but do your research. I mean, one of the things you said earlier is cyber scouting. There's a little magnifying glass on all Facebook pages, and you can search. If you have a YOLO resi, just type in YOLO, and you can pull up a lot of the questions over the past probably decade that the pages have been running, and you'll get good information. I mean, I know I've gone to refuges that I've never been to, typed it in, and pretty much had a game plan before I even left my house.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of sticking with like the information on Facebook, we got a comment from Chrissy P who said, posting on Facebook versus just looking up what's clearly posted online.
Oh, perfect. I didn't even see that. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I understand where they're coming from, but sometimes the information that is posted online is not 100% accurate, especially like this year, like with all the news about, lotto numbers being posted on. Like we quickly learned week 1 that, during the opener, that's not the case at all refuges. So I think kind of bottom line is, do your own homework, do your own research, and then, maybe connect with your hunting network. But if you got to go on Facebook, just support each other, be nice to each other. But yeah, it's brutal, man.
Can't we all be friends?
Yeah, it's brutal. But I would say and I just kind of touched on it, but one of my biggest pet peeves is like the inaccurate like comments in response to a legitimate question, And so, like I said, we might know the answer to something, and you kind of see just, I don't want to say they're trolls or whatnot, but yeah, it's.
I mean, those posts in our group chat between you and I and a couple of guys, like you'll quickly see a screenshot, and then I wonder where this is going to go, and
yeah,
it's just fun. I get it
for sure. I think this one's pretty cool. Like, once again, diving into the Facebook world is Eric K. We've all seen this one here. Quote, I'm not trying to steal anyone's spot, but just trying to cross off some places. It's like, we know what you guys are doing. I mean, you're hoping that someone says, hey, go to pond, whatever, take this blind. I feel like people are asking for what, where the X is, right?
Yeah. I mean, the answer is always going to be get out there and scout. I mean, unless you have a number 1 at somewhere that has a very clear, easy first pick, I mean, it's going to be get out there, pick a spot out of free roam, or pick a blind, pick a pond, put some time in, and stay a little bit, stay a while. Watch the birds. Once your flight's done, bring some binoculars, see how the birds are flying other places, and then put a pin down on your phone or something like that, and scout that place next time. It's really just it takes seasons to learn a refuge, but it pays off, because now I'm 6 seasons in, and there's very few refuges that I wouldn't get a draw that I'm not fairly confident on where I could go to shoot a couple birds.
Well, and we hear all the time, like, oh, it's hard to scout public land, blah, blah. I'm like, I understand that the birds aren't always going to be there. You're not just kind of like driving around. Like you only have access a few days a week, right? But I think one thing that you and I try to do is even when we're like making a long walk back to the parking lot, the sun's up, maybe it's like 10 a.m. and we're kind of just looking to see where the birds are flying. Where are people set up in different ponds? How many times do we are walking out? We might drop an X somewhere where we think we might want to check out for next time. And then just going from, maybe from the parking lot back to the check station, just kind of really paying attention to that 5 mile per hour speed limit and actually taking advantage of it and looking left and right, seeing where the birds are diving in. So there's definitely ways to get to know the refuge, but I get it. Like you mentioned, sometimes you have a 3 hour drive certain places. I know some of our listeners are down south in LA area. And I mean, if they get a reservation, they're probably coming up the night before, doing their hunt and getting back home. So, but definitely, you put in the work and you get rewarded for it for sure. So
I love when people ask about Gray Lodge. I mean, never ask where to go on Gray Lodge. That might be golden rule number one, because guys are just going to direct you right into the clothes. It's comical. Without fail, as soon as someone asks, "Hey, I'm going to Gray Lodge, where should I head?" It's boom, they direct you right to the clothes zone.
for sure. Sure, man. Well, why don't we pivot away from the social media and the Facebook and kind of the pre-scouting, if you will, and let's head right to what we like to call the camo convention. That group of hunters all decked out, at the check station. So the first one I have here is, I don't know, I guess it's not really a pet peeve, but kind of an unwritten rules. I would assume every group has this, every hunting group. We definitely have it in ours, but that kind of resi pecking order, and for me, I always say, don't expect the invite if you're not putting in. It's already hard enough to get a draw, but we obviously rely on each other to, get that success, to get that, that reservation notice. And, we obviously have our list of folks that, we go 1, 2, 3, who's getting the shout out. But I definitely think that this is one where, like I said, put in, support your hunting group, be available, all those things. I mean, what are your thoughts on this one, Caden?
I mean, me being the new guy way back when with you guys and coming in, this was one of the first rules I learned. So, I mean, it's something to live by, and the rule could change, your group could change, but if Brandon's putting in for 10 different refuges 80% of the year, that's a little bit of a financial hit. And the kind of my opinion is that expectation that was like I also would be putting in, and then if Brandon gets a draw and I get invited, when I get a draw, I invite Brandon. And there's some other guys in our group who have that same kind of nod, because I know if they get the draw, I'm one of their first phone calls as well. And I just think that's just how the world should work and how it goes around, and it keeps us all hunting. I mean, if I didn't have you getting some draws last year, I don't think I would even been on a reservation.
For sure. And obviously, especially if you get the invite, make sure you have all your stuff. You're good to go. I'm going to skip this next one and jump right into Paul M's comment here, where it says, hey, if you're hunting a refuge, have your hunting license, have your day pass, have your license plate number ready when your number's called. Have a good idea on where you want to go to hunt with alternatives. That's good as well. So, obviously we were just talking about, bringing on that guest, inviting someone else to hunt, make sure that everyone in the group has the day pass. We don't want to be figuring that out at 3:34 in the morning. But yeah, that's definitely one of those kind of pet peeves, if you will, where, obviously, fortunately, I don't think it's ever happened to anyone in our group, but I've told you, I always try to, have good karma out there, and I have extra day passes. So if someone needs one, I don't mind, it's what, 20 something bucks. Here you go. And hopefully, if it gets me one more bird that day from the duck gods, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And one of the ones I like on that, and it was a learning curve for me, is have your license plate number. Because especially if you're at a refuge that has more 2 or 3 windows going, a lot of times the guys checking you in will still go, just because you're at the window, they're still waiting for the number before you to make their pick. And there's nothing worse. I mean, if the group before you, one is dragging their feet, but also like they have that one guy running out to the parking lot with their flashlight, just trying to read their license plate off. Write it down. I always take a Sharpie. I mean, I have it memorized, but I used to just write it right on the front of my license or my hunting license. So that way, when I hand it over to Johnny check station staff, it's right there. They asked for it. I point it out. Don't have to read it to them. Good to go.
Absolutely. So, sticking with, knowing where to go. Pet peeve of mine, I don't know if it is of yours, Caton. I feel like sometimes maybe we've had conversations about this, but over relying on blind averages day by day. So obviously they tell a lot, but not everything. And so what I mean by that is, obviously they have all the blind results, pond results, from, the last few shoot days, and everyone's like, oh my God, this one shot a 3.6 average, or this one only did a one bird average. And for me, it's like, yeah, you can learn a lot from there, but that doesn't tell the whole story. And we think about it like bad shooters affect the average. And how many times have we gone out where it's just like, we're not shooting well? And we think all the time where it's like, hey, we walked out with 4 birds, but, we probably should have had 6 or 7, right? So, the birds are in that pond, they're at that blind, but maybe it's just person wasn't paying attention, so.
Or remember last year on the opener, the guy camping next to us, he went out with a new gun. He had a reservation. His gun broke. He walked. We never saw him walk back in. He walked in after like 30 minutes, switched guns, and had another issue. And it was a whole long story. But long story short, he was out there till about 11 o'clock. Did not bring a bird in because he couldn't. Both guns were broken. And he checks out, and it's like, now that for a weird day, that's going to have a 0. So you could be coming in and checking, and that guy could have had a number 1 resi with the top shooting blind, and he's going to have a 0 for that morning. You never know. So just look at season-long averages. I mean, talk to people. Don't just trust whatever's on there.
For sure.
Or do it and let me get the good blind.
For sure. No, that's a great call and a great story. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, that right there. I mean, one hunter, 0 birds right there. So, and then kind of the last thing I have for the check station and is, when we're checking out, the guys crowding you at the table, like I said, almost chasing
the flea market.
Yeah, almost chasing down your rig as you're pulling up to check out your birds. And I get it. They're all excited. They want to see what you have or don't have. But it's like, guys, like, let my feet, hit the ground out of the car before, you're over there, like, basically carrying my strap to the table for me.
So. I always feel like those 5 or 6 guys are like the best hunters in the world. And like, I have to impress them when I get out of my car. I'm like, why? I don't even know these guys.
No, for sure. For sure. And I mean, here's the deal, man. All these things, especially when we started, we were those guys too. But no, I
let me breathe a little bit.
Yeah, it's not that big of an issue. I think it's almost comical at times, but it's like, guys, just take it easy,
It's a high pressure walk. I mean,
how many times, and sometimes I'll
tell
them
3 ring necks.
Oh no, I'll tell them, and it's the truth. Be like, oh my God, you guys have, you shot 4 or 5 birds. It's like, yeah, I shot them all at shoot light. Then I sat out there for 3 hours and never pulled the trigger. So if you want to go chase my spot, go for it. But it died off. So
yeah, had a sandwich out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have for, the camo convention, aka the check station. But
I think I got one that wasn't posted, and it kind of just came to me. And this is just an etiquette thing.
Let's hear it.
And I'm surprised it didn't come up. But and I kind of just touched on it. If you go out, you have a good hunt, and I'm going to use, you've already checked in, you're at one of the back parking lots, pack your birds into your car, pack your gear up, get to the check station and check out. Because there's guys with their kids, families who want to go out and hunt. If you want to eat lunch, eat it out of the main parking lot after you've checked out your birds. I think that's just kind of a common courtesy thing. There's nothing worse than being at like a great refuge and guys are just sitting out there smoking and joking, and then they leave. And it's like, man, there's people who want to hunt. Let's let them get out there and do it.
Yeah, that's a good call out for sure. And I know I speak for our group that we definitely are mindful of that. At the end of the day, it's going to be a while before we're back to that refuge, especially that spot. So, and they don't know exactly where we were, but they're not going to totally burn it.
It's one thing if there's no refills, or if
Right.
like you're going to go back out after lunch, you're just going to do an all day, maybe try and get some afternoon geese. But if you're leaving the refuge, if that's the intent when you pulled up your decoys, try to check out your birds so other guys can get in there. It's hard enough to hunt.
No, great call out there for sure. Well, we're through the check station, man. So we got a handful here when it comes to when we're out in the field and during
These get pretty funny.
Yeah, so let's start with this one, and I'm on board with this. I actually commented saying, basically, I'm with you, and this is a big one for me too. And like I said, it's not necessarily in our group, but I see how this happens. So we got David from Southern California that said, quote, carry your own shit. just because your buddy has a cart and you don't load his cart up with one thing unless you offer to push the cart all the way to and from the blind. That's a good one there. I mean, obviously, if you're maybe taking out a new hunter or you got your kids' stuff or whatever, that's completely different. But, you get these guys that, maybe they just are bringing their gun out and their blind bag and their stool. And next thing you know, they're like, it just loading stuff up. But, I can think of someone in our group that, he'll throw his stuff on my cart, but you know what? He always offers to push, and
He pushes it every single time.
yeah, it's all good. So, which helps out, because you and I know who we're talking about, and we'll go out and we'll do most of the work at the blind. We'll throw out the deeks, do all the setup and stuff like that. So he definitely does his part by pushing that.
Yeah, and he hunts once or twice a year.
Yeah,
maybe a few more on a good year. So it makes sense not to necessarily have all the gear or nothing, but great guy to have around. Always good to push out the gear and crack a few jokes.
for sure. So let's see what we got here. This next one, we have Tyler, who says he wished people would actually work birds and shoot them at 20 yards. That's more fun than actually shooting them. Nowadays, it's all about the pile picture. Don't get me wrong, I love taking pictures of successful hunts, but don't skyscrape just to line the tailgate. So this one definitely, as we've all been there. I'll admit, like, I've taken shots longer than I probably should have, especially early on. It's a slow day and you got some birds coming up over the top. We've all been guilty of skyscraping. I think if anyone says that they've never done it, they're full of shit. But, as I've, gotten older, become more aware of my hunting, become more aware of, bird ID, different things like that. I definitely think that we've done a better job of letting birds, work coming closer. We just found it to be easier than, chasing birds halfway across the pond, more ethical shots this way. I mean, you and I were just talking about it today as, I know I'm going to be running a new choke this season. I think you were talking about it as well, that, we don't need that full choke anymore. Let's take shots.
I think a lot of guys just don't realize what 40 yards looks like. You hear guys saying they kill them at 70 or 80, and it's not that. They may take pokes at that stuff, but the birds, you guys, I think, at least in all the hunts that I have, when I watch birds fall, they're always within 40. I mean, and 40 is a long ways. Go pace it out in your backyard. If your backyard's big enough, or go down to the park, look at 40 yards is a long ways. And that, I think our group does a great job at dropping at 40. It's tough on a refuge though, because once they get in that 40 range, you might be at 30 yards, but you're only going to probably get one pass before a neighbor shoots. And I'm not talking bad about that neighbor, but it does flare the bird. It's going to immediately change the flight path of that bird and probably kick ours out of there. So we're very good. I think we see that usually you get one pass, birds are starting to work in. If they get within that 40 to 30, that's our time. That's at least my window to take a poke.
But we were even talking out in the field today when the after we were done throwing deeks and everything, we were having this conversation and we are like, what do you think 40 yards was? And we just happened to be standing 40 yards away from the pit and we're like, that's a poke,
It's a poke. I'm confident enough in my manhood to say 40 yards is a poke. I'm sure there's guys out there and I know I've taken shots. I've done some specific goose hunts and things like that where you're taking taller shots or whatnot. And I have my gun set up for it, but 40 yards is a poke. I don't care what you're saying.
Yeah,
I like your line about shooting.
No, I can't take credit for that one. I don't remember where I heard it from, but it was fairly recently. And, my whole goal is to let birds come in much closer. And like I said, I'm going to be running, a wider choke. I'm going to be running the modified this year because I've always been a full choke guy, that. But I heard someone say, if you can't make a free throw, why are you shooting threes? And I was like, that makes so much sense, So yeah, we'll see how it goes this year, but I feel good about the shooting. I'm all patterned in. I feel good where we're at, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, I just want to touch on this other comment from Tyler about, nowadays it's all about the pile picture. And I definitely think there's a lot of that, especially as like these younger generations coming in. We already talked a little bit about the social media, the Instagram part. And, obviously we want to take pictures, share our successes, but, we want to do it ethically and make sure that, we're not just out there giving the sport a bad name by, taking these bad shots, crippling birds, You don't want to see a pile of birds, with a bunch of all their necks wrung out because, they were a bunch of crippled that you sailed and stuff like that. So, yeah, I definitely would say let's not skyscrape. Let's just have a fun, successful hunt.
Exactly.
So let's see. This one's good here. I mean, this is really more of an unwritten rule, but I definitely think it's one that we should all know. But we got
This is a
Josh.
big one for me.
Yeah, for me as well. We have Josh here from the Sacramento area that says, quote, if someone takes you out to their spot, don't go back out with someone else. And, you know, that's a good
And
one.
that last part's the bit is a real that's a loaded comment. It's like I almost say it's a don't go back, possibly without at least communicating with the original person, and then bringing a stranger out there. I mean, that is almost like a cardinal sin in a way. I mean, it's just tough because if someone's bringing you to a spot, especially if it's a lesser known refuge or a free roam type stuff, they've worked for it. I don't know.
See,
I said the first episode, there's not a spot that hasn't been hunted on almost every refuge in California, and I get that. But sometimes guys do put in work, and if you get a nod from someone who's an elder, so to speak, maybe don't burn their spot for them, with some Joe Schmo that you used to go to college with.
and that's what I was going to say is I think that it kind of depends on the group here because you and I think about like our hunting group, even if we were to kind of go out a layer or two, it's all kind of the same group of guys. So we're not really bringing out like randoms. But yeah, to your point, I've even seen it where I'm out at the check station and, I see, maybe someone that I, met 10 plus years ago and or maybe I went to high school with and we've gone out and hunted together, just being like, hey, I'm gonna go free roam, you're gonna go free roam, and I end up going to his spot or he goes to one of mine. And let's be honest, maybe some of my spots were some that I got from another one in our group, but I'm really mindful of where we take folks. But I think it's just important, have your tight hunting circle and make sure that I don't need to worry about this. Like I'm not worried that you're going to take folks somewhere else, but I definitely see where Josh is coming from.
Yeah, especially some of the spots I hunt up north. I mean, it gets protected. I have a secondary group chat with some buddies from work up here, and it's literally called the non-spot burning group chat because we had one and one of our buddies just absolutely burned a spot, and it was pretty comical. And it's been a year and a half and he just gets drugged through the coals. He's not in this other group chat. We purposely will only text him this one, so he's left out. We bust his balls all the time, so it's true. It's something that I live by in our groups.
But I'd be curious to hear like what some of the listeners have to say on this one, because obviously if I take you out to the spot, I take someone out there and they have Onyx and they drop a pin on there. Okay, now my spot's burned. But if we're in a group chat or, we've heard other podcasts, you hear Facebook or whatever, if I say that I'm out on I don't know, the west side of Delavan or the east side of Gray Lodge, whatever, like I could say what parking lot I even went out of. Like, you're not.
That's fairly vague. Those are good. I mean, I'm okay with lot even. I've had a lot of great hunts when guys are like, hey, I would just try this lot. And I mean, that's super vague, I think.
Yeah.
But I've had, in specific, like, I'd be curious what the listeners say, because if you bring a buddy out, good friend or whatnot, and then all of a sudden a week later, let's say a picture gets posted of another limit or two limits, let's say, and it's like, wait a minute, 14 ducks. I didn't go. You went. I know that lot. And then you find out, oh, that was where we hunted. You didn't even invite me. It's like, I get it. I'm probably wrong in this, but it sure is fun to.
So I'm laughing when you said someone posts a picture because I forget.
Or text a picture.
No. I forget who it was, but I'm pretty sure that I saw someone on Instagram that had posted a pile of birds like on like a down tree or something like that, but they had blurred the background. I think they were that kind of paranoid that just the background alone would be like, hey, I know that Thule patch. They're over at, Pond 28 in Sacramento, whatever. It's like,
yeah.
What? No. So.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think I'll be curious what the listeners think. I mean, we've hunted, I mean, back when I first started Grizzly Island, for example, that's a spot I think that would be you wouldn't think that'd be, hey, you're burning spots, but you got to work to learn how to not only where the birds are, but there's just ponds out there that are inaccessible. So, you have the Onyx scouters, which we're all guilty of. And you see water on Onyx or whatever app you're using, you go out there. Well, at Grizzly, that pond could be 10 feet deep. And obviously that's dangerous and whatnot, but that to have good X's in that pond or on that property that are huntable takes time, takes effort. And I know like our buddy, he would in the past is like, hey, try this parking lot. And yeah, we'd go out there and we'd find some canals that I wish I had a inflatable to cross because there would be great habitat across, but we couldn't figure it out. And a year and a half down the road, we learned a path just because, from trekking around and scouting. So
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, for the listeners out there, let us know what you think. I think we all agree, like, you shouldn't take people out. Like, if someone takes you out, you don't take another random person out to that spot. But as far as, are we really burning spots? When we started talking about them, I'm sure there's some conversation about that. But yeah, let us know what your thoughts are. The next few are all kind of around the same thing. And I mean, now we're going to dive into, kind of the free roam and different spots.
etiquette.
But, yeah. Cody from Sacramento area says, just quote, headlamp wars. And we all know what he means by that. You go out there and you folks are racing from the check station, they're racing from the parking lot, and maybe they're out there kind of working, they got their headlamp off, and next thing you know, they're shining their spotlights and they're shining their headlights your way. As soon as they start hearing water splashing around from people kind of coming into the pond, and you and I've spent enough time in free roam where it's like, you know what, if we see headlamps out there, we just don't even go. If someone shines them on, we'll just keep it moving. I'm not looking to, and let's be honest, a lot of times it's these young kids, early 20s, whatever. I'm not looking to argue with them at 3:34 in the morning. I don't care about getting, a couple birds that much that I'd rather just go sit somewhere else and find a new spot. But, just be respectful.
If it feels close at night, it's probably close to it's going to be a lot closer in the daytime. I mean, that's a big one. We talked about it today.
For sure.
Just spaced out. And I've been on hunts where I can think of one specific where I totally screwed up, and I could have swore I was using it was a spot I'd hunted before. Someone had beat me out, and I was like, oh, I go around this bend. I'm like, I'm going to be pretty far. And I did feel bad because the sun came up, and all of a sudden I realized the birds that were working my decoys were falling, probably 100 yards or 50 yards, I don't remember, behind me. I'm like, oh, I am on it. And I poked my head over, and sure as shit, his spread was right there. And I just kind of had to sit back and let him take his shots because I screwed up.
Yeah, I think on this one, though, I would definitely say, use your headlamp, let people know, like, hey, I'm already here. Because I was thinking about I think it was last opener, it was the Sunday. So we got on Saturday afternoon, but then we went out and filmed
right.
Sunday morning. And I don't know who was there first, but we didn't hear anything. We went out there, we got all set up.
That was last year.
Then, obviously,
shots were fired.
Shoot light comes, and we get into a couple birds. We don't hear anything, not a peep from anyone behind us. And then next thing you know, 20 minutes later, this guy shoots off, and he's like 15, 20 yards behind us, obviously shooting the other way. But that's one of my biggest fears especially when it comes to these free roam ponds is, like people not realizing that if you're within like 40, 50 yards, I mean, I just heard a story about a guy that actually just got peppered, like in his like arm and shoulder. I don't know where. I don't even know if it was here in California, but that's how accidents happen. And it's not worth it. You know what I mean? This is my hobby, and I love it, and I hope to be doing it for a very long time. But it's not worth me, getting peppered with some BBs, just because we're all trying to get on the 1X.
That was a weird one, because I feel like every other time, at least someone usually says something or, hey, you're right on me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have no idea who got there first because we had no idea where this guy came from.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a safety issue. For some reason out in the pond, I'm pretty unconfrontational just in life. I've been known to pick my battles outside of duck hunting, but that's where it's like, just say something. You can even, an off mark. If you can if you're able to have a conversation with somebody nearby, you're probably too close.
Well, and let's actually tell a positive spin on it. God, you were hunting, so this is probably within like the last 5 seasons or whatever. And I want to say it was an opening day or opening weekend out at Grizzly, and
Oh yeah,
we ended up
that was.
meeting that guy. He's a vet. I think he's a former Marine. We met him in the Resi line, and
Mhm.
you know what, like. We just invited him to come along with us. You know what I mean? Because he didn't really know where he was going to go, and
Yeah, that's right. He had just got out of the military, and he was going to do the same thing. I think he was kind of heading our direction, and we ended up hunting us three, which we'd never done before, and that was great.
yeah, I mean, we learned met someone out there, and he didn't really know where he was going. We were still kind of getting used to Grizzly Island, and
Shout out the Grizzly sweat line.
it just worked out. So, but yeah, I'm looking here. Ryan B says, "quote 50 yards away from the next group is too effing close," and so yeah, he's spot on there. So just be nice to each other, give each other some space. At the end of the day, like, just make it a good hunt, good experience. We've all been guilty of it. We're not up on our soapbox saying that we've never done this, but we're obviously mindful of it, especially as we've gotten.
I would say we haven't done it intentionally, that's for sure. But
Correct.
there are people who would just do it just to do it.
But yeah, just like
I like these next ones coming up, though.
yeah, I mean, like I said, don't set up right on top of someone else. Don't be an asshole if someone is heading your way. They may not see you. Just work it out. But yeah, so these next few are kind of towards the end of the hunt, I guess, or we got one more that's during, but I liked this one here because this is actually a big pet peeve of mine too. So Billy from the Bay Area says, quote, "bring a bag and haul out your trash, including spent casings. Quote, your mom probably isn't backfilling the blind to do it for you." So that's a good one for sure. I'm really mindful of it, like, especially when things slow down or maybe we're having like that breakfast in the blind. I make sure to put my garbage in my blind bag, even when we're out there and we're picking up deeks, and I'll just grab a handful of, our shells and just, throw them in the sled, and I'll throw them away in the check station. I don't care if they're mine or someone else's, but I always try to leave the blind definitely cleaner than I found it. But it is a shame, like what some of these blinds, especially towards the end of the season, what they end up looking like. And we all hear about it preseason. Like, there's not enough staff at these refuges to maintain these blinds. They barely have enough to kind of put up the cover and stuff like that. So I think we all as hunters need to make sure that, we're taking care of, obviously the blind, the ponds, and keep in mind, like, this is all habitat for the birds too. So we want to make sure we're picking up our litter, but good shout out here from Billy.
And all it takes is one person who's anti-hunting who goes out to a blind, and it does happen, and they get good pictures of just us trashing the habitat. It's like, these guys aren't conservationists. They're just out here to litter and kill birds. It's like, man, that's not where, and I don't think the guys who are littering are even trying to do it. They're just thinking it's good to happen. But we just got to make sure we clean up, especially in free roam too. It's a little tougher to pick up your shells, but just do it as as your dog's retrieving your duck. You can shuffle to the side and grab your 2 shells that you shot.
For sure. It's funny, as you were just mentioning that, I was actually pulling up the Facebook post here because one of the things, and I didn't pull the comment, but you definitely get those ones that are just out there. We're talking about that pile of birds, but also like, shoot what you plan on, like shoot and harvest what you actually plan on taking home and eating and providing for the family, or sharing with your friends and whatnot. Because there's a lot of folks out there that just want to go out. Yeah, here it is. It was Dylan that said, "I hate people that go out hunting just to kill. The guys that are, quote, all about the blood and pile picks." So that's another one too. Yeah, this one here. Another Dylan says, "if it flies, it dies. Shoot everything." He's obviously being a little sarcastic because I read the whole comment here, but that too, that's another big pet peeve of mine too. So right on. How about this one? And I know, and I'll read the comment and then I'll kind of give my context on it. But Andrew from Southern California says, quote, "leave the kazoo at home." home, end quote.
This is a good one for our group because
It is, and I'll tell you why. Because I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. I'm a horrible caller, but I would say I'm actually killer on the whistles and all the different things. But I know that I've teased you over the time over the years, and you have gotten way better when it comes to hitting that mallard call, or I know you're working on your spec call and stuff like that. But there were a couple times where even you've called yourself out, right? Like a couple years ago, you're like, that doesn't sound good, or you really try to do like kind of that comeback, that hail call, and the first few notes are really good, and then all of a sudden like you're trying to catch your breath or something, and there comes the kazoo. But I thought this one was pretty funny.
I feel like that was one of our friends who had like his burner account going because he always calls. He's like, good God, put that kazoo away. But I haven't hunted with him in a few years. But anyways, like it was definitely a learning curve for me. I'm glad I powered through those years. But I even find myself, I mean, especially early season, if I don't because I'm not driving as much for work anymore, or like you and I used to, or you still do. Those first few hunts, I'm a little rusty. But yeah, calling does work, but read the birds. If you're just hammering on the call and they're not even flinching, or they're just going away from you, you can stop. You'll know. You're not just yelling at them. You're trying to talk to them. I don't want to sound like a dork or a nerd, but if they're looking at you straight in the face and you're hitting them with a hail call, it's essentially like your wife yelling at you at home. You're just going to turn around and go the other way. Well, it's you got to kind of be smart with it, and I like that. Put the kazoo away because these guys call and call and call.
Yeah, and I'm looking because someone, I mean, I don't need to find the exact comment because we all know this to be true, but sometimes less calling is more too, right? And I know that people are like, what the hell does that mean? But like so many times, like you're just absolutely on the X, and especially after, December hunt, you put out your mojo or whatever you're running out there, and birds are just diving in on it. Like you don't even have time to reach for your call before another bird's just coming in 10, 15 yards. Sometimes you're just there. I remember a hunt last year, and you and I were chatting about it. I went out solo, and I mean, I was on the X of X's where like I'm literally out picking up the bird that I just harvested before as I'm walking back to the blind, another one's already coming in to my spread, right? So it was a hell of a hunt, and very little calling needed that day. So
yeah, and how many times have you been sitting in a blind and the closest bird of the day is when you're not even looking or calling at that note, because they finally got some peace and quiet and they want to take a look at your decoys.
For sure. Well, I'm looking at the time here, and my goal on this one was to keep it under an hour, and we're definitely going to do that. But we're coming up to the last one here, and I think this one's pretty funny. And I might want to shoot this guy a comment to be like, tell us more about this, because I've never experienced it, but I'm sure it happens.
I've never experienced this.
So this one's funny. So Daryl S. says, quote, "Don't shit in the blinds at the refuges. Get out of the blind and go shit in the toolies like normal people."
I thought he was joking, and then he doubles down and gives. I'm like, no, he's serious because he's explaining what he wants to happen.
But I'm trying to figure this one out, because even if you're out by yourself, or
so then you're sitting and
that's what I mean. So,
or is it like an upper decker? Like you're right before you leave someone's house, and it's a college prank, and you're just leaving an upper decker in their toilet. You're leaving a present for the next hunter in there. I don't know.
I mean, the only thing I can think of, and I'm not justifying here, but maybe maybe Daryl was, and I'm not saying Daryl did it, but this blind that he went to was in like one of those like island blinds right in the middle of the pond. So there's like no cover, so you hop out and everyone kind of sees, hey, that guy over there's picking up already. Like, no, he's not. So
that was, man, that was me on our first hunt where I was a couple hundred yards away, and hey, nature was calling, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, man, if someone drives by on their boat right now, because we're by that boat canal, they're just going to see my waders just buried in the grass as I'm trying to figure out how not to fall over while I take care of business.
Man, we've all been there. I mean, I was telling you the other day, and the listeners, I mean, everyone has a story of something.
I hope we're not. Yeah.
out in the blind. But I was telling you about that one time at Grizzly, and we were in like 4 foot water, right? And I mean, I had no choice but to like climb up and sit on top of the tulies. It was so thick, but you know, we find ways to get it done. But I never would think to shit in a blind. Even you go to those ones that have like maybe it's a 4-man blind and it's 2 and 2, and you're over there maybe in your own blind. You imagine just like, what are you doing over there?
I wouldn't even take a leak in one. At
No.
least at worst, and I've done this on the rice blind. I've stood up on the top of the blind and just took a leak into the rice check, but or the water. That's not a problem, especially if I'm hunting solo. But
Yeah.
man, in the blind, I would love to. Well, I wouldn't love to see it, but I'd love to hear the story behind that. And I hope it's only
Yeah.
one story,
Yeah. I think,
or he's hunting in a really shitty spot.
yeah, no pun intended, but yeah, we will definitely, let's reach out to him. Let's shoot him
Yeah,
let's shoot him a message and be like, hey, you know, we brought this up on For the Fowlers, but maybe we'll even see if he wants to come on real quick.
I'm
Just
hoping
tell
this
the
is like
story.
some Southern California refuge, Kern, or one of those ones down there that we're never going to be able to make it down to.
For sure. Well, I think we'll end it on that one there. I don't know, Caton, were there any others that you had? I mean, I think we
No, I
kind of
think we
dove in.
touched on. I'm sure more will come up every episode from here on out. But man, that's a good first list.
Yeah, for sure. So, no, this was a fun one here. We really appreciate all the engagement on Facebook here. And, you know, it was great to kind of hear all the different pet peeves and, you know, all those unwritten rules that people have for their hunting group. But, yeah, man. So we'll wrap up this episode. Before we jump off, don't forget to rate and review on Spotify. We are on Apple, and then tell your friends we're also on YouTube as well. So it's still audio only, but still for those of you guys that like to, you know, kind of put YouTube on in the background while you're at work or whatnot, look up For the Fowlers. You'll see all of our podcast episodes on there. And yeah, tell your friends, jump on Instagram and follow us at For the Fowlers too. So a lot of good stuff on there. We'll be posting more as the season goes on and as this podcast continues to take off. But until then, we will see you guys all next week.